jump straight into Sonnet 104. To me, fair friend, you can never be old. Shakespeare's first 100 and something sonnets, 115 sonnets, I think, were all written to a young man who has historically just become to be known as the fair youth. Some people thought he was the third Earl of Southampton. Others think that he was Shakespeare's nephew, William Hart, the son of his sister Joan. And here's a picture of the Earl of Southampton. Shakespeare's sister Joan wasn't rich enough to have her son get a portrait painted, so we don't know what he looked like. People have suggested that Shakespeare was romantically involved or enamored with the fair youth, but there's nothing in the poems about the fair youth to suggest that there was any actual romantic or sexual involvement. We just know that he was a beautiful young man who Shakespeare looked at and admired the youth and beauty in him, and I guess reflected on his own aging as a result. Okay, so it's a Shakespearean sonnet, Elizabethan sonnet, and all of the Elizabethans who wrote sonnets at that time used the same rhyme scheme, same as all the Italians who wrote at the time of the famous poet Petrarch used the Petrarchan sonnet rhyme scheme. The Italian or Petrarchan rhyme scheme would be A, B, B, A, C, D, D, C, E, F, G, E, F, G, where Shakespeare is the three quatrains and the couplet, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. And you encounter sonnets again when you get to your Victorian poets, and they then start messing with it a little bit. So it's still a sonnet form, and it looks like it's going to be Petrarchan, it looks like it's going to be Shakespearean, but then they muddle with the rhyme scheme a bit. But anybody who was writing in the mid to late 1500s, 1600s, and they were British, would have used this rhyme scheme. Oh, by the way, if I'm using any terminology that you're not 100% sure of what it means, even if your teacher has said it 17 times this year, and you've heard it 63 times in the last 5 years, this is your last chance. This is your chance to say, Bev, what is a volta? What is the difference between alliteration and assonance? Ask, really, 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 really. Okay, so the volta or the turn, where there's a shift in attitude, in tension, in mood and atmosphere, even in argument in the poem, often in Shakespearean sonnets comes in the couplet. In this particular one, it comes at the start of the last. There is a turn that happens at the start of the third quartet, and then he shifts his tone and to whom he's speaking in the final two lines. So this poem, like all Shakespeare sonnets, was written as a poem of love, of honoring something, of sonnets were really, really used to kind of idolize people or things, and may or may not ever have been sent to the recipient. But in the sonnet, he addresses a fair friend, okay? And fair in those days meant attractive, beautiful. And he's saying in this poem, you're never going to look old to me, not to me, because the way you looked when I first saw you and you first saw me, you seem to be exactly that same way, even though I know that 3 years have passed. We've had 3 summers, 3 autumns, 3 winters, 3 springs, and you must have aged, because we all do. Nature's gone through this inevitability, cyclical change. But you look just the same to me. However, I do know that beauty does fade as imperceptibly as seeing the hand of a clock or the dial of a sundial moving. If you're staring at it, you don't notice it's moved, but you come back a bit later, it has moved. So okay, I'm admitting my eyes might be deceiving me. I just might not be seeing it. And then he shifts and he addresses ages unbred, people who have not been born yet. And he's saying, hey, you better hear this. Before you were even born, the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beauty was at its highest peak. So sorry you missed it. So it's really, really, really a celebration of one particular individual's peak of beauty and youthful vitality. And it's also a comment on the inevitability that we will all age and ultimately die. And an acceptance that that's just part of nature as well. So let's dip into the text itself. I'm going to read over here on this screen. Oh, and Shakespeare's sonnets, always, the title of them was either the number in the order that he wrote them, or otherwise the first line. To me, fair friend, you can never be old, for as you were when first your eye I eyed, such seems your beauty still. 3 winters cold have from the forest shook 3 summers' pride. 3 beauteous springs to yellow autumn turned, in process of the seasons have I seen. 3 April perfumes in 3 hot Junes burned, since first I saw you fresh, which yet are green. Ah, yet doth beauty like a dial hand steal from his figure, and no pace perceived. So your sweet hue, which methinks still doth stand, hath motion, and mine eye may be deceived. For fear of which, hear this, thou age unbred, ere you were born was beauty's summer dead. Okay, so that he must have, to Shakespeare, looked gorgeous with all his youthful vitality and flouncy long hair and lacy collar and doublet hiding a 6-pack, if not an 8, I'm sure. Okay, notice the way he has changed that first line. Of course, normal grammatical structure, he would have gone either, fair friend, you can never be old to me, or you can never be old to me, fair friend. Okay, the normal subject, verb, object. You can never be old to me, fair friend, would be the normal way of writing that grammatically. And yet he has started with, to me, fair friend, you can never be old. So he is right from the start saying that he's showing us that it is from his viewpoint. He is owning and acknowledging the subjectivity of our perception of beauty. Okay. For as you were when first your eye I eyed. He didn't say when first I saw you. When first your eye I eyed. So if his eye is eyeing the other guy's eye, the other guy's eye is eyeing his eye. Eye. Which shows us that it's not a stranger that he's just perving from afar and like stalking and writing creepy poems about. They saw each other at that point. All right. Such seems your beauty still. So we have the alliteration with Shakespeare. You look for sound devices. He was big on what does it sound like. Remember, he wrote plays. He knew how to write for what it sounds like when it's spoken aloud. So obviously you have that fricative sound and the sibilant S, and those sounds, when they're repeated, are soft and gentle, and it also feels quite reflective, nostalgic even. Look at this full stop in the middle of line 3. That is odd for Shakespeare. He uses enjambment, he uses his commas at the end of a sentence, he uses dash, colon, semicolons and that, but to see that stop in the middle of line 3 is begging attention. And remember that poems are word paintings. So assume that every word choice, every single punctuation mark, every rhyme scheme, it's all carefully chosen and worked on and reworked. It just didn't happen randomly. So to me, having that stop, that caesura in the middle of line 3 speaks to this whole idea of, I saw you and it feels like time stood still in terms of what it did to your beauty, because you look the same way. Boom. You haven't aged, you haven't changed, you are still like that. But the line keeps continuing and he goes into citing the movement of the seasons, right? So 3 winters cold, and now we have our first enjambment, have from the forest shook 3 summers pride. So even though, oops, to me, it seems the same, actually, whether I decided to stop here or not, the line is carrying on, because whether I decide that he hasn't changed or I don't want to age or whatever, time continues, the seasons continue. And you see how that connects to the theme. And the enjambment shows how time just keeps moving along through the seasons. 3 winters cold have from the forests, look at that, which also intensifies the sound of what the forests are shaking. The summer's pride is the pride of summer, the flowers and the leaves, the green leaves, and they turn to autumn and they shake them down. Okay. I also get the sense that maybe this person is a bit prideful and arrogant. Well, if they're as beautiful as Shakespeare said, then they have, they have a bit of a right to be, I suppose. But there seems to be this kind of aloofness. If you are extending the metaphor into suggesting something, if it's comparing the seasons to the character of the fair friend, a coldness, a pridefulness, and obviously the personification of the seasons here. Notice the repetition of the 3. And again, 3 beauteous springs to yellow autumn turned in process of the seasons have I seen. The enjambment here is to emphasize the fact and to highlight the fact and to acknowledge the fact that time keeps moving on. Summer will turn to autumn, will turn to winter, will turn to spring and back again. And it's also showing that even though the summer's pride, the leaves are going down, he starts with winter, right? He starts with winter and he goes all the way across to spring and autumn, which is showing that in nature we do have rebirth and renewal. And that's important that it's brought in at this point of the poem, because later he says, was summer's beauty dead? Okay, so we as human beings might die out, but life continues, and it's a natural process. Okay, 3 April perfumes and 3 hot Junes burnt. Okay, so April from spring into summer, the heat of summer, the perfumes, that would be a metaphor for the smell of the new flowers that are starting to blossom. So it's been 3 full years, 3 full seasonal cycles since first I saw you fresh. Look at the nice fresh, almost like you open up the tint. It's kind of that sound, the freshness. And he's likening this person to a vegetable or a plant, right? A nice fresh green banana, which yet are green. Green being a metaphor for young, for fresh. He hasn't turned yet, like some of us have, like one of us has in this particular Zoom environment. And here we have the turn. So he acknowledges, yes, and there seems to be a very particularly slightly somber, a thoughtful, reflective mood to the and then yet doth beauty. So he's acknowledging, even though you still look like that to me, the truth is, beauty like a dial hand, simile, steal from his figure and no pace perceived. So beauty is stealing away from the person without you even seeing it, like a dial hand sort of moving slowly without it even being noticed. So your sweet hue, your blush of youthful beauty, hue is a color, which methinks still doth stand. I still think it's there, hath motion. So even though I still think it's there, it is moving. It is moving. You are aging, just like the seasons. And mine eye may be deceived, and I might not have noticed it. And then there's a colon. When we look at the semicolon, here after no pace perceived, okay, an explanation is coming. So yet doth beauty like a dial hand. So this has probably happened with you. Now, a semicolon is kind of, okay, here comes the next. I could have ended here, but I'm going to add more information. Whereas a colon goes, stop. Flashlights are going, pay attention to this. Pay attention, everybody. For fear, look at the F again, of which, in case, because I'm scared that I might not have noticed. And next minute, suddenly I realize, oh my God, he's old. What happened? Okay. So fear of it, hear this. And he addresses directly the age unbred, which in this case happens to be us, the reader. It was quite a common theme among the Elizabethan poets to mention in their poetry and to think about and to write about the legacy of their writing, of their writing, remembering themselves and their subjects after they died. So 200 years later, the Victorians, well, 300 years later, the Victorians became obsessed with it. But the Elizabethans were also conscious of I'm going to die, but my work will continue. And anything I have described in my work will be immortalized. All right. And remember, you're living at a time where they were building cathedrals for 400 years, 500 years. Okay. It wasn't like quick AI, 3 seconds, boom, printed out. So the idea of life continuing, but a legacy that somebody leaves, living on, was something that was important to the Elizabethans. And as I say, when you get to the Victorians, it was quite a preoccupation of theirs. The Victorians even took photos of their loved ones dressed up smart and they're like propped up, their dead bodies in their books of remembrance. Creepy and true. Okay, so he is saying, as an Elizabethan, hear this, thy age unbred. Colon, like really hear this, guys. Before you were born was beauty's summer dead. So you need to know that there was somebody absolutely beautiful in the prime of their beauty before you were even born. And he is honoring, acknowledging, and immortalizing the beauty that he sees in this fair youth that he feels has not changed in 3 years. All righty. Okay, so let's discuss the theme of the destructive influence of time in this sonnet. For 3 marks, I'm gonna go say tick, tick, tick when if you say something that will land a mark from the examiner's point of view. Who's going to answer? Caroline? No. Who is out of your pair? Who's going to answer this one?
I'll answer.
Super. Aria.
Okay. Time is viewed as the enemy of beauty, as over time you age and gradually it fades away. But
okay, wait. Okay. Enemy of beauty, tick. Okay, keep going.
But then we also have a contradiction. Time also does not contain a destructive influence, as even though the time is passing, the poet does not see it as he's in love with this person.
We don't know that he's in love with them. There's nothing to say that he's in love with, he admires. So be careful of that.
Time is stealing away beauty, but the poet ignores this due to his admiration for the person.
Okay, cool. There is something else that you could also, if you're going to take the counter argument, which it's also, yes, it's saying that time is the enemy of beauty because it takes the time, because it steals it away. But you could also say that he also shows that nature gets renewed every year. So with time, there's also a renewal of beauty. And I think that's also an important point with this poem, because he's saying each year we do get, spring again and everything else. However, this fair youth is so beautiful that we're not going to have this matched ever again. But what he's saying about the destructive influence, be careful though, in a 3-mark question. My advice to you would be to not contradict yourself. If the question in an IEB paper says, to what extent, blah, blah, blah. And you go, to a large extent, yes, but also no. Whatever you said first, the yes part, is all they're going to mark. They will ignore your counter argument. So be very, very careful, okay, that you don't contradict yourself in 3, 4, 5 mark questions. Right. Just be careful how you phrase it. Okay, explain how the poet uses the seasons to show the passing of time. You will get marks for substantiating with quotes from the poem as well, hey? And Aria, your one, just the first 2 sentences that you did, and with a quote would have got you your 3 marks, by the way. All right, the other pair. Explain how the poet uses the season to show the passing of time. Who can answer that? Who discussed that? Mandlakazi, did you discuss that?
I'm not sure because I exited by mistake. I don't know.
All right. So would somebody like to have a stab at this? How does the poet use the season to show the passing of time? He mentions 3 winters, 3 summers, 3 springs, and 3 autumns. He repeats the word 3. 1, 2, 3 times, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Okay. The repetition of the three reinforces that the seasonal changes in nature happen again and again and again in a natural order. Let me just go back to the question. He doesn't just mention the season that has gone past, he also highlights the changes in nature that occur, that the trees lose their leaves in winter, which we see in line 4. That spring is beauteous once again, but then the leaves turn yellow in autumn. And so he is denoting the physical changes that you see in nature in a cyclical way. And by saying it's 3 and mentioning that 3 reinforces that this happens, well, it happens every single time. Okay. 2.3, Shanna, let's hear. Explain the change that comes about in lines 9 to 12. Yet death doth may be deceived.
The poem changes in message and tone from a message of focusing on the adoration of the beauty of the young man that Shakespeare is speaking about with a tone of adoration, to a message speaking about how with the passage of time, beauty changes and in a reflective and thoughtful tone.
Even though you may not notice it. Okay, so yes, it changes from this adoration and saying that he hasn't noticed any change to an acceptance and an acknowledgement that he might actually be wrong because time does change. And there is an admission and an acknowledgement that the speaker might be wrong because he hasn't noticed that it's changed. Cool. How about show how the rhyming couplet serves to sum up the poet's attitude to age and changing beauty. Can you remember, Tyron, what you guys were talking about just before I pulled all the others back in?
No, ma'am.
Shanna, let's go.
Okay, so what the speaker feels is that aging is inevitable, and with age, beauty is changed. This is shown by how he refers to being summer's dead, which again refers to the seasons, which is a natural, inevitable change. And he also believes that this speaker's beauty was so beautiful that it will never be seen again, which is shown in him telling the future that the most beautiful person is gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And this poet definitely says that, your beauty will change. It's going to go when you age. It's inevitable. Yes. In the rhyming couplet. But he also reinforces the fact that even though there will be other beauties born, they're not going to be as beautiful as him. And you know what? They're not. Please click subscribe. It's free. And for more content in this section, click on the playlist.